Welcome to the Brandon Beeyard Show. So great to have you here. Another episode. It's late January 2026. Let me start off by telling you this. So, I think I ended the show last week explaining how I wasn't sure if I was going to go to New Orleans or not. I had a trip to go visit a friend for a wedding. And I ended the show with, do I get stuck? Let's see what horrible thing befalls me when I decide to go to New Orleans during winter apocalypse 2026. And I did. Well, I didn't. I woke up that morning. I did not go. And I ended up being very justified. And I just want to tell you how I got to that decision because it was part luck, part strategy, part doing what I didn't want to do. I wanted to go to New Orleans. I wanted to go to have a nice wedding, go out. I had a friend who had a 40th birthday that night too, so it was going to be awesome. Great, quick trip. I'm there by 2 p.m. I'm flying out at 8:30 the next morning. Any other week in January, this would have been fine. But of course, the week I decide to travel, winter storm from hell comes and blankets the South in ice. I know this. I still want to go. I'm trying to justify it. Something in my gut just isn't right, but I'm trying to make it right. I'm looking. The flight out, no problem. The flight back at 8:30 in the morning on Sunday, right after all of the sleet and ice has moved through Austin, and a bunch of storms has turned into a bunch of thunderstorms that are about to hit New Orleans. That was the problem, and I knew I'm going to be so disheveled and angry if I get stuck in New Orleans because of weather and sit at the airport all day for this like 16-hour trip. It was bad. I needed to get back. So I'm looking at it. I already checked in. We're talking 2 hours before I got to go to the airport to fly out. And I see, okay, it's going to be icy in Austin the next day, but the airport usually operates. I'm checking with my good friend ChatGPT on all of this to make sure I know how Austin Airport handles ice. But then I'm seeing just this line of thunderstorms moving through New Orleans, forecasted for the around like 2 hours after my flight on Sunday. That's what's supposed to happen in the weather forecast. And I'm running all this by ChatGPT, and I'm like, I could probably still grow, right? And ChatGPT is like, man, I don't know about that. And so finally, I decide, you know what? The Austin airport's operating. It's going to be icy. Might delay my flight an hour, hour and a half. I can handle that. But then, if that flight gets delayed an hour and a half, those thunderstorms are going to be moving through New Orleans right when I'm trying to take off tomorrow. And I'm going to be stuck for however many hours. I don't even know. It ended up being the right call because that is exactly what happened. The last time I checked on Sunday, my flight, I was at home, warm in Austin. My flight was approaching 4 hours delayed. So I absolutely made the right call. Give myself a round of applause for that. Wanted to go. And here's the thing that I did not think about. Say I got back to Austin on time. Not having ever lived in an icy area for a long time before, I did not appreciate, I would have driven to the airport, parked at long-term parking. The roads from the airport to my house were covered in a half an inch of ice. It's still there 4 days later. I'm looking at my backyard right now. Still ice, still covered in ice. How in the hell was I supposed to get from the airport back home? Maybe I could pay some young, dumb Uber driver to do it. But I don't even know if that was possible. That would have been a wild ride coming back from the airport. So either way, I would have been fucked. I made the right call. I got back. I never left, I should say. And thank God. Thank you for ChatGPT for helping me figure that out. But ultimately, you got to go with your gut. You can't trust AI. You got to go with your gut. I saw something in the news this week I just want to briefly mention. All right, it was on 60 Minutes last week. They were talking about crocodiles and how in Australia, apparently it's illegal to hunt crocodiles They're not managing the population. So now they're growing a lot. There's a lot of crocodiles there. And they won't pass any law to allow people to hunt and kind of keep the population in check. But crocodiles are fucking dangerous. They're dangerous wild reptiles from the Mesozoic era, and they can't be trusted. And I just thought it was so funny how Australia during COVID was the most lockdown happy of all the countries. Not one person was allowed to die from COVID in Australia if they had anything to do with it. But if you look at the death statistics for people who get eaten by crocodiles in Australia, it averages about one a year for the past 50 years. So one person can't die from COVID. But one person a year, it's okay if they get eaten by a crocodile in the most horrific way possible. What is that? It's bullshit, is what it is. And I bring that up just to point out the bullshit in so many decisions that get made like that. Here's the thing. How many kids are actually at risk of dying from COVID and ever were? 0. How many kids are at risk of getting eaten by crocs on any given year in Australia? A lot. Crocs would prefer kids. So kids can't die from a virus, but they could certainly get eaten alive. Ridiculous. Hey, what happened to Emma? She got eaten by a croc. Emma was out playing in the river. Croc got her. Oh, well. Emma's dead. What the hell? A horrible way to go. And I'm sorry. There's something just inherently funny to me about it being the 21st century and we're human beings and we fly around in drone aircraft and airplanes that land themselves and we have space rockets and people are still getting eaten by animals like 4,000 years ago. It's hilarious. We're not above nature. We can't be. Nature still gets us. We're pretty much above it, but not 100%. Freaking crocs, man. Dinosaur-looking things. Still eating people. Oh, it's wild. Here's another contradiction I was thinking about. I'm a skydiver. I skydive regularly. I have over 200 jumps. I have a C license. I have my coach rating. So I do it. I'm a skydiver. But I have had friends recently come up and tell me, friends, if you're a skydiver, your friends always have stories about someone they met or someone their family knew or someone they've heard of who went through some horrific injury or died skydiving. They'll be glad to tell you that. And they always say this. This is wild. They're like, and I've even had friends say this to my face. I don't feel sorry for anyone who dies skydiving. I wouldn't feel sorry for you if you got injured or died skydiving. I'm like, oh, thanks, dude. Appreciate that. Now, why is that? It's a horrible way to die. I guess people were thinking, well, I would never do that. Because I would never do it. I would never go skydiving because I'm a smart, responsible person. So whatever happens to them, you chose to go skydiving. You chose to do it. That's kind of ridiculous. Because let's think about an everyday activity that everybody does that's way more dangerous than skydiving. Driving. Driving is an order of magnitude, if not way more dangerous, statistically speaking, than skydiving. A lifetime of driving, you're, 10x. It could be 100x. I'm not sure. We'll say 10 to be safe. At the very least, it is. I've looked this up. 10x more dangerous. You're 10x more likely to die than you are being a lifetime skydiver. And same thing, even in any given year, you're 10x. Yet we drive every day. Well, that's not really fair because you have to drive. You've got to drive to travel anywhere. So you've got to do it. So we feel bad when people die in a car accident Always. Of course we should. It's just kind of selfish, though. It's like, well, you died doing something that I do, so I'll feel bad for you. But if you know how to live your life, you figured out, you do something you like that's thrilling and fun, I'm not going to feel bad for you. You should feel bad. That person was living. They decided to overcome their fear and do something scary and thrilling and exciting and something that really spoke to them on a deep level as a person. They did it. They did it anyway. And you're not going to feel bad for them if they get hurt. I don't know. We don't feel bad for people when they die of fentanyl overdose. Well, he shouldn't have been blowing coke. I don't know. Number one, that's not the worst way to go out. Better than skydiving death. Fentanyl probably feels pretty good. But that person knew how to live. Did something he enjoyed. Well, that's just ridiculous. Well, what about flying? You don't have to fly. You don't have to get on a Boeing 737 and fly to Idaho to visit your relatives. You could drive. You could take a train. But no, flying is safer. But people die flying. They didn't have to do it. Okay, the flying analogy, a little weak. What about this one? Here's something that everybody considers a tragedy when it's totally optional. What about when the space shuttle blows up? Or whenever one of those ships goes out into space, blows up, and there's people on it, it's going to happen. I hope it doesn't. I hope it never happens. Where it's going to be a tragedy. It's going to be a tragedy, but they didn't need to do it. They didn't need to strap their asses to a rocket and go off into space. But it's still a tragedy. I'm just saying, if you feel sorry for them, feel sorry for skydivers when they get injured. They don't want to get injured. Nobody wants to get injured. I'm going to laugh at you when you slip and fall in the shower, crack your head open. Because that's hilarious. Or if you get eaten by a crocodile. You shouldn't have been in Australia. They got crocs. So, skydivers are people too. That's all I'm saying. Fun people. Good people. It's just interesting the contradictions we have that are completely like BS on so many levels. We just feel bad for people like us. We don't feel bad for people who aren't like us. That's it. That's not nice. So those were the thoughts that I had this week. I want to talk about one other thing, slightly less funny than people being eaten by ancient reptile. I want to talk about, this is something that was just really speaking to me. And I don't know where I'm going to go with it, but I just strap in, go with me here. Responsibility. Being responsible. What is responsible? Is my question. When somebody's doing a job they don't like, they're paying the bills, they're doing it, and we say that's responsible. You got bills to pay, you got a family to raise, or even if you don't, you gotta make a living. That is responsible. You're doing it the responsible way. But I think we mix up responsibility and suffering. I don't know. There's something about suffering that is responsible to us. When should it be? Should suffering ever be responsible? Like society fits, is organized a certain way. It wants to fit people in certain boxes a certain way. And being a cog in that machine is responsible. And I know that I've fallen for this trap many times. I, have had a job I hated, stayed in it way too long because it was responsible. I know that personally, when I first moved to Austin and I was trying to get into comedy and do more of the live performing and all that, knew I needed to bring in income first. And so I sat down and decided, all right, I'm going to go into self employment. I'm going to start some kind of business, bring in some income. Got to do that first because that's responsible. And I'm not arguing with the fact that, yeah, it is good when you're doing something big and new to have a layer of stability in there, like in it, a regular income. But I think when we try to be responsible, we fall back into things that we just accept as not great. They kind of suck, but I'm going to do it because that's responsible. And everyone's going to feel bad for me if I'm miserable, and everyone's going to get it because I'm being responsible. But if I'm not responsible and I'm doing something unexpected, out of the norm, something that feels more alive and free, that isn't responsible. And I'm saying this because I've fallen for that too. So I put off my, the true stuff I wanted to do, helping people live better lives, follow their dreams more, be more themselves, being more myself by putting out a show, doing live comedy, whatever. I chose to engage in activities that drained me energetically, that didn't leave time for the stuff that really mattered. And I did it for way too long because I wanted to be responsible. It felt like you have to be responsible, right? But what I've realized lately is that maybe there's a better way. Maybe what we think is responsible is actually the most irresponsible thing you could do. Like building a business or taking a job, stuff that's just going to rob you of your energy, your time, your vitality in order to pay the bills as a means to an end, but then drains your energy so you never get to do the end thing. Maybe that is the most irresponsible thing you could do. Maybe an extreme example. You've got, you're a single parent. You've got a kid. You default. You got to pay bills. You got to make sure everyone's surviving, but you default to survival mode. And when we default to survival mode, we do things we wouldn't normally do that we don't like. Meanwhile, you're setting a bad precedent for that kid, showing them that work is suffering, life is suffering, your dreams don't matter. You just got to do what you got to do, even if it makes you unhappy. And I get it. We all have we do have things that have to be paid, but there has to be at least a way to leave room and energy for what you really want. Because I think what you really want often feels irresponsible because it doesn't fit cleanly into a, readily definable role in society. What you really want is usually something more artistic, more, it almost feels selfish because you would like it. But isn't the most responsible thing doing something that you like, that makes you come alive, that's more aligned with your strengths, even if you haven't ever done it before? Because it's going to give you energy and you're going to be able to do it longer and you're going to be able to follow through and you're going to be able to have to be motivated and wake up every day and do it. And doesn't that guarantee more success than doing the responsible thing? Because if you're more motivated, you have more energy, you want to do it more often, longer, it gives other aspects of your life energy. If I just think a little bit and I think about how I can use those gifts and talents that I have to serve other people in a way that they're willing to pay, it could be in an entrepreneurial way, a self employed way, or it could be through a job, but a job that you would actually want and like. I'm not saying it's not the norm, but it's possible. Doing all that is responsible. I don't know. I think society just beats us down and makes us feel like the only way to be responsible is to be miserable. And I think in the short term, you got to do what you got to do. But beyond that, if you're not at least setting aside time a little bit, if not all of it, to do something you actually are that like resonates with you, then you're never going to have the success that you want, the great success, the huge, wilder success than you can ever imagine. We just tend to get comfortable with being responsible. And I know in my life, at least, I've ridden the responsible thing into the ground where I just got so sick of it. I don't want to do it anymore. I've, working on my business in the past and recently, doing it alone, kind of like hunkering down, working remote. I'm being very efficient with my time. So I'm going to stay at home and do a lot of work here because it's responsible. I got to get the money going. But then that whole structure drains me, whether or not I'm successful at it. It drains me from the other things I really want to do. The things that were the things I was trying to do, the responsible, in quotes, thing for, so that I could finally be where I wanted to be. What if you just started where you wanted to be? Even if it was like paying less. Because couldn't you most likely parlay that into more leverage because you're more willing to do it? I say that you give it a try. Can't you try it? But if you've got something that you want to do, like the thing that you're going to feel free to do once you've covered all your responsibilities, why not put that first? Even if it and I've done this, and it feels scary when you don't have the other things, the other necessities, the other parts of Maslow's hierarchy taken care of. But Maslow's hierarchy is kind of bullshit. What if you put that first? You were a little smart about it. You did the thing in the way you wanted to do it, but you also used your skill, your core strength, your core thing that you're good at, that like you enjoy doing, and applied it in a way that was maybe more readily being able to bring in income right now. It's not exactly what you imagined, but it would help you do work that's more aligned with you. So I don't know. If you've spent too much time being responsible like me and really have nothing to show for it except putting off the life you really want, then that's not the responsible way. That's not the way to do it. You've got to do the thing that is, and I think this is why a lot of people fall into the responsibility trap, is they're really afraid to try the thing they really want to do. They've never done it. They've never had permission. They've never given themselves permission. They don't know how. It's easier to just fall in line, do what everyone else does, and be miserable. It's scarier, but there's way more upside to do the thing you really want to do, your dream, your using your unique talents in the way that you want, in the way that you envision. And that is more responsible. It is, because you're only given so much time on this planet. And you can struggle with doing something you don't want to do that you never wanted to do, or you can struggle doing something that you really wanted to do that might open you up and change your life and open doors and make you wealthier than you ever imagined, where there's no ceiling. You just have to wrestle with the ambiguity for a little bit. I think I'm going to take that way. It's not easy, but it's the right way, I think. And if worse comes to worse, you can move to Australia and get eaten by a fucking alligator. Or crocodile, I should say. You can move to Florida and get eaten by an alligator. Alligator's a little more docile. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about today. No more ice storms. Except the one in your heart. I don't know what that means. This has been another episode of the Brandon Beeyard Show. I hope that gave you something to think about. Something to take away. What's the thing that feels irresponsible but really isn't in your own life? Maybe you should flip things around and start there. All right. I will see you next time for another episode of the Brandon Beeyard Show. Goodbye.